G'day, I'm Ralph. Welcome to Geoterrics Outdoors Australia. A couple of months ago I bought this GoPro 360 camera, or the GoPro Max, and although I'm no expert in how to make 360 degree videos, I've made enough mistakes to be able to offer you some tips and tricks on how to get the best out of your camera. If you're thinking of buying one, or if you've got one and you're not quite sure where to start, I've got 6 tips for you. Hang around, I think you'll enjoy this. Tip number 1, make sure you get to know your camera before you start taking video, because there's some settings and there's some features of all the different cameras that you really need to spend a bit of time to understand. One of those on this particular camera is the importance of pointing forwards. This is the back, this is the front. I didn't think it mattered because it was 360, but it actually does matter. The software, when it stitches the 2 separate video footages together, can have an adverse effect if you're not pointing the camera in the main area of action that you want to capture. The next one in getting to know your camera is understanding which is 360 and which is hero mode. In this particular camera, when you turn it on, it defaults to hero mode, not 360, so you've got to pick the 360 mode. Also, if you want to get a higher frame rate, say 60 frames a second, it will drop down from the 5.6K down to 4K, and by the time you render that out and lose 25% of your video quality, you're going to end up with a fairly grainy or fairly basic video. Another thing when setting up is make sure that you've got a decent mount. Now, GoPro sell a selfie stick for this. I've read the reviews, and from what I can understand, it's not very durable, and it doesn't hold up to some of the more extreme uses that 360 users might put it to. The issue we've got with mount, I've been shooting with a monopod with a fairly large base plate, and when I put that on the GoPro mount, you get to see quite a lot of the stick or the monopod in the video. Initially I thought it was the mount itself, and so I shaved a little bit off both sides and made it in line with the camera. If you've seen my previous video on the review of this, you'll understand that the software actually cuts out the width of the camera, so anything you've got in line, like the fastener or a pod, whether that be a monopod or some other sort of mounting system, will get cut out if it's thin enough. A few of my videos have actually got that big chunk in them. I actually bought this little monopod a few years back from Wish, and when I attach that, it actually is inside the stitching area and it takes it out. The other thing is alignment. You want to make sure that you've got everything aligned, that it's cut out of the shot once it's rendered and the stitching is complete. The next tip I'm going to give you is how much to do in the software that comes with your camera. The GoPro Max comes with GoPro Player, Insta comes with the 360 viewer, etc., and there's a few aftermarket ones you can get that will stitch your footage up and give you an output that's fairly reasonable. I haven't used them because I haven't needed to. Now, there's a couple of tricks with the GoPro Player. I'd recommend you to use that, because what you see is you see the video in the 360 format. Other editors will show you a flat file, which is an equirectangular file, which is basically just a 2D section, which then gets projected onto a sphere, theoretically or virtually. Really hard to edit. That's why I love using the GoPro Player app, because I can see everything in 360. If I need to cut anything out, I'll use the GoPro Player to export them as individual files, and then I'll bring them into my editing software and join them all together there. The other thing you can do in the GoPro Player is keyframe, and you can set up keyframes and then change your aspect. You can change your aspect to fully spherical or fully tubular, and I'll show you some examples of that, and they just look fantastic. It's a great option if you want to be a little bit more creative with your video. I understand from some people that I've talked to it can turn their stomach, but either way it's still very, very creative. A couple other settings I found in the GoPro Player is that although the camera will capture 360 video, 360 sound, it's got 6 microphones on it after all, there's a triangle of resolution, of world lock, and also in the stabilization. Now GoPro's stabilization process is some of the best on the market at the moment, and it's truly spectacular. The use of stabilization, and without it, is quite marked. But you can't use all 3 of them at the same time. You can have world lock on and you can have stabilization on, but you can't have 360 sound. If you want 360 sound, you can't have any of the other 2 on, and either way, as soon as you start to output, you're going to drop markedly in quality. On all of my exports, I cut out world lock, and essentially if you're filming this direction and you're walking or you're cycling or kayaking or whatever, and you change direction, the app will continue to look at the action in that direction. It's world lock. It's like a GPS. It knows which way you've initially been pointing. That really messes up my video, especially where there's live action and I want you to see the front. You can choose to go 360 whichever way you want to go, but this is where it goes. Tip 3 is when you import your 360 video into your editor. Now some of the higher end editors you can actually view and edit in 360 mode, but for some of the less featured software packages, it's going to give you that equi-rectangular file, and it's a flat 2:1, so 2:1, and it really is quite distorted. Now the problem is when you insert graphics, the graphics unfortunately are going to be spherical as well. So I've found that putting smaller graphics in and putting them in a halo or a circle works a whole lot better. So regardless of where you happen to be looking, you get to see, like my company logo, the Geoterrics logo, I make sure I put that in a complete circle, that regardless of where you're looking, you can see it. A word on export resolution. As I explained in the review video that I did for the 360 Max, the camera records in 6K and gets rendered down to 5.6 in the stitching process. The problem is, if you're using the GoPro Player app and change any of the settings, it won't actually output, and you need to be very careful what you actually allow the GoPro Player software to do, and that will affect your outcome. If you can imagine, every time you go lower, you're sharing whatever resolution you've got. If you go down to 1080 or even 2.5K, you're sharing that in a complete sphere, and the quality of the video really drops when you do that. So there's a tip for you: keep it as high a resolution as possible. Tip 4, ensuring you've got the metadata in the video file that YouTube, Facebook and various other platforms that allow 360 videos will actually understand, that it's not a 2:1 file at whatever resolution you've output, it's a 360 file. And to do that, it reads the metadata in the file. My editor doesn't do this, and I don't know if there are actually any editors that do. If you know of any that actually export with the final video file, please put them in the comments, because I've done research and I can't find any. What you need to do is get a metadata injector, and the one that I use, I'll show it to you on screen. You open the file, it injects the metadata, it saves it as a new file, and then I upload that to YouTube or Facebook or whatever I'm using, and it works straight away. Tip number 5 is uploading. 360 files not only are big, but YouTube, for instance, needs to process this as a 360 file. The other day I uploaded my latest 360 video, which was kayaking on Tingalpa Creek. That took 4.5 hours to upload with my home connection here at the moment, which is Australian NBN. And it took another 3 hours to process in HD. So that can take 7 or 8 hours depending. One of the other tips I'd give you, tip number 6, is tell viewers that they actually need to select the highest video quality they can get on the platform they're viewing. In YouTube, you've got the option of the various resolutions, either in writing or verbally. Yeah, because if you don't actually tell your viewers to up that resolution to the highest they can get, they're going to be watching it in a very low resolution, and that doesn't look very good. The other tip that I could give you as well when you're presenting your videos is to give your viewers some idea of what a 360 video will do, that they can scroll however you want to do that, because a whole lot of people, my family included, just sat there and watched the flat video and had no idea that they could actually turn their phones or scroll with the mouse left or right. Once they do, it's a whole other experience, and I highly recommend that. So that's it for me for this video. Just wanted to share with you some of the tips that I've learnt through some of the mistakes that I've made in quite possibly changing your mind if you want to buy a 360 camera, if you want to use it to create content on YouTube or Facebook or any other medium. It's a fantastic way to show and share the world around us. I'm going to continue with it. I'm going to persevere with the technology and the limitations of software, and possibly do some upgrades. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Please share it with your friends. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.